Start mission.
Hi, this is Joel Persinger. I'm the Gun Guy. Thank you very much for watching the channel and supporting GunGuyTV. I'm very grateful that you do that. Please don't stop. As you know, producing videos and producing a channel on many different platforms does cost money. And frankly, the majority of the money comes out of my pocket, so we are 100% supported by you. If you don't mind supporting us, we'd certainly appreciate it. You can do that by clicking on our Amazon link whenever you want to shop Amazon. That helps us a little bit. You can also help us out on Patreon if you'd like. You can do that. There's lots of different ways you can support the channel. Right here in the description, there are links to those various things. Also, I should let you know that we are on multiple channels at the moment, so all those different choices you can see on the screen right now are the various different places that you can watch GunGuyTV. We are not anymore prisoners of YouTube. So YouTube could delete us tomorrow and it wouldn't matter. We'd still be available to you. And we're looking for more locations as time goes by. So stick with us and watch even more. I have the joy of having as a guest Rick Travis from the California Rifle and Pistol Association. There is a ton of news and lots of things for Rick to make you aware of. So I'm going to shut up now and say good afternoon, Rick. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Joel. It's always a pleasure to be on the show. Yeah, we have lots to talk about today that you and I have been discussing over the last couple of days. And so let's talk about what everybody else is talking about. Justice Kennedy resigning from the Supreme Court. If I was there, I'd hug you, give you a high five, a bro hit, everything else. It's a glorious new day.
Absolutely, I'm thrilled. I mean, I got to tell you, that's a piece of news that I, honestly, when he didn't resign or didn't retire last year around this time, I figured he was just going to hang out to see if Donald Trump was going to be reelected in the next election and not do anything until then, as obviously Justice Ginsburg will probably do if she lives that long. So the fact that he's chosen to retire now says a few things to me. One, he seems to feel confident in President Trump to replace him with somebody that he would feel good about. He must have looked at the list. But, you know, now there's the battle in the Senate. So what do you think? How do you see this playing out?
I think McConnell is going to go pretty quick and try to shove this through. He's got the votes to do it. So I think long as the president, which we have no reason to believe he wouldn't, puts together a strong candidate forward, say somebody like Mike Lee, who's on that short list of 25 they published in the White House this last November, out of Texas, would be a great choice in my opinion. But he's got 25 pretty solid pro-2A people that you can put in there, which will shift the balance of the court, obviously from, you know, more little left-leaning in the recent years to more right-leaning, especially when it comes to terms of the Second Amendment. And now we'll start to get cases heard. There were a lot of people that were critical post-McDonald, post-Heller, that we had an Antonin Scalia that would talk and lecture during the off-season on the Second Amendment, but then not take cases. And one of the arguments that Scalia made in the off-season is, I don't want to take a case and have the very justice that just stepped down, Kennedy, go sideways on it, because then it would become law of the land. So good news for us is we have many, many cases, us, the National Rifle Association, and others that are in the pipeline have moved their way through the circuit courts. They're waiting to be heard by a strong pro-2A Supreme Court, but have been getting kicked down over the past few years that now can go forward. And so we have a really great opportunity that we haven't had arguably in about 25 years to get some really good decisions up. And if we were lucky enough that Ginsburg would also leave during this time period, we could set the fate of the court for quite some time.
So does Mitch McConnell at this moment have the votes before the midterm to push this through even in the face of Democratic opposition?
Yeah, most of what the Democrats are doing is just trying to act like they have muscle. But right now, Mitch has the proverbial political nuclear weapons to push this through. And he has already come out both yesterday and today and said that's exactly what he'll do, whatever it takes to get that nomination from the president through.
Now, the only other, I guess, oddball on the court that might throw things in the works is the Chief Justice, because there have been times when he's gone wacky directions that just nobody saw him going. I mean, he said, wait a minute, Obamacare, I think, is an example of that.
Right.
What is his, I mean, does anybody know what his record on the Second Amendment is? Because I have no idea.
No, it's hard to sometimes tell because on the Supreme Court, the two people that go on record is obviously the dissent and the opinion writers. So, for example, when Scalia wrote the opinions on some of the pro 2A, he's obviously listed as pro 2A. But you could have a Neil Gorsuch like we do right now that may not write the opinion, and you have no idea unless you actually go and look at the votes. And that's not some people usually track. They usually track to see who's the opinion, who's the dissent.
And so if you were to look at the justices that are there now, do you have a sense for which of them are or tend to lean pro Second Amendment? It seems to me that Justice Thomas does.
Thomas is definitely on our side. Gorsuch is on our side. And there's a couple others that Chuck would be better to ask than me on that, because I don't follow the Supreme Court as closely as he does, obviously being the head attorney. But we're looking in a really good position now with having 5 solid people.
Well, I mean, it can't be worse. I mean, this change, and viewing as Donald Trump has appointed justices in various parts of the country, I think with the singular exception of the courts of appeals, because what you and I talked about before when we got together the last time is that he's limited to the justices that are available from that particular state. And when you're talking about a really liberal state like California or Hawaii or whatever, his most recent pick for the Court of Appeals in the Ninth Circuit had to come from the state of Hawaii, and his choices were extremely limited. He didn't have a lot of choice. So he picked the worst, the best of a group of really rotten judges and did the best he could. That's not the case with the Supreme Court. Neither is it the case with the federal bench generally. And his choices for the federal bench have been pretty good, have they not?
Yeah, they've been very good. And I think also what's nice about this president is he's been very transparent. Right after Gorsuch was confirmed, he released a list of 25 candidates that he is sticking to for the next position that opened up because he was fairly confident. There was a lot of, for lack of better words, precursors that were coming up to this. We saw that Kennedy had not reestablished his clerks for the next year. So we were fairly confident that this announcement was going to come. We didn't think it would come quite as soon as it did, but we're happy it did because it's perfect timing with the midterms and everything. And the president has already said he's picking from that list of 25. We've all been able to look at it, vet it. We all have our personal favorites. It's kind of like the baseball draft. You know, there's people that I'm like, hey, Joel, this person would be a lot better than your person. But at the end of the day, it's going to be positive for all of us.
So regardless of how we look at this is a very, very good thing.
It's a very good day. And this is one of those times where we in the Second Amendment community should honestly be taking a sigh of relief, celebrating, you know, toasting, whether it's with coffee or something stronger, and saying, thank God.
Yeah, amen. This is something I've been hoping for a while. Well, listen, unless you have something more you want to talk about with regard to Justice Kennedy, there has been some other news. You have news from today, do you not, regarding the gun show?
Yes, I do. So I think all of your listeners are very familiar. There is a concerted effort, as there always is, but definitely to try to close down gun shows here in California. A lot of money coming in from the usual suspects, you know, the Brady campaign, the, you know, pretty much name every anti-2A group. But every town, California has really been at the forefront of this and going after the crossroads of the West gun shows in particular, which happened in San Diego, down your neck of the woods, here in Orange County, Ventura, San Bernardino, and Ontario are the big ones here in Southern California. And then, of course, the Cow Palace up in Northern California. The Cow Palace, they're trying to do it through the legislature, and so we're fighting that. But they have been boots on the grounds, entrenched every meeting of these various agricultural boards that run these fairgrounds that have these gun shows at. They have been trying to shut it down. Today we had a meeting. We had a great turnout. I want to really commend all the people that showed up. They were incredibly professional, definitely pushed back on the optics that it's a bunch of Elmer Fuds in this movement, you know, and showed who they were articulate, used talking points, and that worked because today it was only one dissenting vote. The rest of the board voted to continue the gun shows. There is a small clause that they could try to shut it down for the October and November shows. We'll be back in August fighting it, but we're making progress in that same fight down in San Diego. We're trying to block it at Ventura in Ontario and San Bernardino. And of course, we're pushing back in the Bay Area. I find it ironic though, and one of the things that we're trying to get people to realize is this is a place for public safety to happen. It's a place where people can come. And this morning when I testified in front of the board, one of the points I brought up, Joel, was, you know, we had a lady who now trains with us and with other organizations, And her background was about 8 years ago, her son went off the deep end and left her for dead in her home. And he went to jail for that. Because of the tyranny of Sacramento, got an early release, if you could believe it, after almost killing his mother, and got released into the same county where she lives. And she was afraid to leave her home. And she lives in a very nice part of Orange County and was just absolutely terrified. And when I tried to get her to go consider getting a firearm like you do as a trainer and said, hey, there are options, she was afraid to walk into a gun store. She was afraid to go anywhere. And when I said, do you like going to the fair? She said, well, yeah. I said, the gun show's held at the fair. You're safe at the fair, you'll be safe at the gun show. She went, she got to meet some instructors like yourself and others, got to talk to some people. Not only did she get trained, not only did she obtain a CCW a year later, but she is now an instructor for battered women. That's all she does. And I pointed out that that is a story that replays over and over and over at gun shows, that people that don't normally go to gun stores feel safe enough to go to a gun show because they can talk to multiple instructors, multiple dealers, and get the good news that they need, along with first aid kits and disaster prep and all the other things for public safety. And that cutting off these gun shows solves nothing, because there's nothing that's ever happened from a gun show that's led to a mass shooting. That is absolutely erroneous and false. And so what you're actually doing is cutting off the choice that law-abiding citizens have to protect themselves. And that argument seemed to resonate with the vast majority of the board members this morning.
So is the Orange County Gun Show in good shape still, or is it?
It's in good shape for sure for the August one. They voted to go ahead and approve both the October and November shows, which are the last 3 shows of the year. The board could try to pull a fast one. I don't think that's going to happen. The 2 board members who were also backing Ashley resigned this morning simultaneously, which, yes, exactly. I was very happy, very pleased with that. So she's kind of an island on her own. We're going to be going back down to Del Mar, pushing to make sure that one survives. We're fighting this statewide. We've collected signatures along with other groups statewide, and we're going to keep up this pressure, because I will give you an example. While this turned out great for us today, and it truly did, what was interesting, and I pointed this out to several of the people that showed up on our side, was this was never an issue that was agendized to be decided today.
Oh, wow.
They pulled it out of a consent calendar and decided to make it an item that they were going to vote on. And this is why it's so important for our people to be at these meetings, because it can happen that quickly. And had we not been on the ball and saw there was a potential for that, it was never on the agenda, and we wouldn't have had the people in force to save it.
You know, this brings up something that I've said before. It's an old saying, and I'm curious what your response to it is, and that is that all politics are local. We tend to focus on the presidential stuff, the national stuff, and we forget about the mayor and the city council and the board of supervisors and like that. I mean, how true is that statement that a lot of the valuable work that needs to be done at the local level?
It's extremely true. If you look at what's happening in California politics, and I can even boil it down to Orange and San Diego County, at one time, not so long ago, Joel, because you and I were both alive during that time period, and while we make fun of ourselves and our age, it's not really that long ago, that what happened was these were 2 of the most conservative counties in the nation. Why did this happen? It didn't happen overnight. It was because the Democrats learned that we had our eyes on the big ball, being the general. We weren't watching primaries. And they started, to use the baseball analogy, farm teams. In different counties, they had demographics where they could get people elected as dog catcher, water boards. The worst one yet is the educational boards. How many people look who's going to run a college board or a school board? Yet those are the people that decide where the next generation gets its learning and education. So when we have socialist education in the classrooms that totally obliterates the Constitution, that's how we end up with generations of people that have no clue. And this is why we're fighting back and saying every single position needs to be vetted, and we need to take the local serious, because if we turn it there, those are the people that elevate up to Assembly, to Senate, to Congress, and even to the highest office in the land. And we've got to stop it locally.
You know, that is a Herculean task, though, Rick. I mean, for the individual voter, of which
Yes.
I am one, to determine the stances, particularly with regards to the Second Amendment or conservative issues at all, with each one of those folks is incredibly difficult, if not nigh on impossible. So we end up finding ourselves relying upon the local radio talk show host, or the somebody that some columnist that we tend to follow, that we tend to think is a good idea, and that individual gives us this list of folks that we should vote for. But truthfully, we're not really sure. You kind of ask yourself, should I or shouldn't I, based upon that. I know judges are kind of like that too. So you guys just don't. I mean, I don't know whether you do or not, but it would strike me that you don't have a staff large enough to vet. Are you? Okay. Yeah. I was going to say, who's going to vet those people, because you're talking about, what do we got? 50 some odd counties in the.
Yeah, we have 58 counties.
How many cities?
It's right? Herculean. But one of the things that we've got to get better at, and we're improving both as an organization and as a community, is having conversations like this, where I'm talking to you to get the word out to the people. You do an excellent job, all the time of getting information out. But it's also getting those people to talk back to us, like we've talked before. Yeah. I may look in Poway, for example. I don't live in Poway. I have a couple of friends in Poway. I depend on those friends to tell me about the local city council person or the water board or something, because they know them and they know they're good or bad. But when we keep it close to ourselves, we can't develop the resources. In many, many of these elections, people have this attitude, oh, they have more money, we can't win. Look to what just happened this week in New York. I mean, I don't like it, but the fact was, we had a lady who's a socialist get elected in Brooklyn with 1/18 of the money put up against her. And that happens because they focused and she got people on the ground to talk. We got to get back to that. Tip O'Neill, who's been dead for quite some time now, but Tip O'Neill used to argue, you win elections in Boston and the rest of the country, boots on the ground. And it doesn't mean the same pair of boots. If I could get 100 people to give 1 hour talking to their neighbors, that's more effective than any ad I could ever run.
It sounds like what you're saying is, we need to be the neighborhood watch for you. We need to be the people who are saying, okay, I just saw this in my water bill, like you and I talked about before, or I just found this out with my local city council, and not assume that CRPA knows about this, or not assume that our gun rights organization know about it, but instead pick up the phone and call, and because we're the neighborhood watch guy. The cops don't know that this sketchy dude is scoping out my neighbor's house. I do. I need to call the cops. Right. I mean, does that analogy seem about right?
No, that's absolutely perfect. That's exactly what we have to do. No local organization within a county, no regional organization, definitely not a statewide one, can handle everything in their area without the help of the people. And this is, people love, and I love it because I see it all the time at gun show, we the people. And everybody loves to push that, but we the people literally means we the people working together for a common cause. It doesn't mean we the people, Rick sitting on his butt back home on the couch watching TV, complaining, throwing stuff at the TV set and not doing anything about it. It means calling up Joel, calling up myself and others and saying, hey, do not elect this person. Don't let this guy or gal from being the dog catcher, the county trash collector, or whatever their job may be, move forward because they've said anti-Second Amendment things. And you don't know how many people I've met with up and down the state that said, oh, I knew this person who's now an assemblyman was an absolute jerk back when they were on the school board. Then they went to the city government, and then they made it to the assembly. Well, why didn't you say something when they were at a lower level and it was easier to knock them off politically, not anything?
No, I knew what you meant. We're not knocking anybody off, just keeping them from winning an election. Exactly.
Right.
Now, with that, there's one other thing you said, and I made myself a gigantic note over here, because you've used this term before, that we all look like Elmer Fudd.
Yep.
And we're all I'm sure I'm going to make somebody mad, and it won't be the first time. The gun owners are considered to be old, white, pasty-faced guys.
Correct.
Elmer Fudd.
Overweight.
Thank you. Overweight, and I do have to lose about 20 pounds, but overweight, out of shape, Elmer Fudds. And I'm curious to the degree that if you are seeing that stereotype changing, and if so, how much?
It's changed a lot. One of the things that we've been doing for about the past 18 months, and we should have been doing it honestly a lot longer, is going to areas where we normally don't see gun owners. And you and I've kind of talked about this in the past. The thing about gun owners is if you looked at 100% of them, 100% don't go to the range with you and I. They do not go to gun stores, and they don't even go to gun shows. That's about 10%. 90% are people that inherit a firearm. They bought it when they were younger. They bought it because something happened in the news, the neighborhood, whatever, and they put it in, the closet, under the bed, nightstand, next door. Have never showed up. But those are people that have motorhomes. They're people from various cultural backgrounds. So one thing CRPA has been focusing on is going to cultural events and setting up booths. We did one back during Cinco de Mayo, downtown LA, and we had over 80,000 people pass through our booth, mostly Latino and African American, picking up information about gun laws, gun safety, and thanking us. Now, if you think about this, we were literally less than 500 yards from City Hall in LA. Wow. Now, if you would have looked at me and said, you're going to put a booth where, Rick? You realize no one's going to talk to you. You realize that's the heart of the Democratic Party. Yet, we had single African-American mothers, Latino mothers, Asian mothers coming up to talk to us. We had families, we had young, we had old, and there were very few white people. I just want to make that really clear.
There were no Elmer Fuds showed up.
Right. And that was in our booth. I wasn't there. We actually had members of our staff who were Latino and African American there talking. Wow. So even as an organization, we're not that way. And I think that's important because we're allowing, I think to Amy Schumer, if I would have asked anybody in the streets 20 years ago, what does international orange mean? They would say hunting or rescue. But she and her cronies have tried to make it the anti-gun color. Mm. They're trying to say that this is about old white men when the fastest growing segment of our population is women. It's not men.
The reason I asked the question is because I'm seeing the fact that stereotype really does not truly exist, and it is not accurate.
No, it's not accurate. And what's interesting, because I've been following this, it's not even accurate within different disciplines. Hunting has been considered for the longest time the old rich man's sport. Yeah, I can tell you, we teach about, on an average month, 60 to 70 people in hunter education here at our offices, and predominantly those classes are filled with Asians and Latinos, and usually about 15% of them females. And they're all first time trying to get out there and go hunt. And it's amazing to me how many people are doing it for food as an alternative to what's at the grocery store that they don't trust anymore, which is wise in that decision. And as a result, we have a bigger voice and a broader opinion. I see it in the 3-gun community. I think that one, if anything, is widely got probably the largest individual populations. The Asian community are very much in the 3 guns. You go any range where you see it going on. Just discipline after discipline after discipline. In fact, I'm very proud to say we've sponsored a team out of Central California to go to Camp Perry right now where the Nationals are going on in Aragon. And the vast majority of the team, as you'll see in our next issue of our magazine, not white. It was of the 14 girls, 10. Of the 14 people, 10 were female.
That covers it right there. Listen, there's a couple other things I want to cover with you that I think are interesting. One of which I think people are excited about, but I'm not sold on the idea that it's as positive as people think it is. You may know what I'm talking about, and that is the whole divide the state into 3 states thing. And one of the things that concerns me about that, and you tell me what you think, but I see 2 things with it that are disturbing to me. One, the way they've divided it up, it looks like you get 3 liberal states. Mm-hmm. And because they didn't separate the rural from the city, they kind of lumped them together. The other is that now if you get 3 liberal states, that's 4 more liberal senators, because 2 states per senator, right? And 2 new states. Am I misreading this?
No, so, we've had a lot of people that I get are frustrated because they feel like they don't have a voice. So I'm going to tell you what I see wrong with the Cal 3 and why it's actually detrimental to the Second Amendment. So if you look, first off is the process for this. So to back up a little bit, let's just say we live in a magical world. It passes. And let's just say we live in another magical world where the governor actually signs off that he approves of this idea. And then let's say we live in another magical world where the entire U.S. Senate and the U.S. House of Representatives says, wonderful idea. And then the president actually signs it. Now, if you want to know what the long odds are, talk to the people of Puerto Rico that now 3 times have voted for statehood and still don't have it. So just because you vote for it doesn't mean it's going to happen. But let's say we're in that imaginary world. Northern California right now has a state that's been trying to emerge from it called Jefferson. They tried just before World War II, which is part of the lower part of Oregon and pretty much everything north of the Bay, and didn't happen. They have voted. All their boards of supervisors, everybody's voted for this. The governor won't hear it, won't listen to it. That would actually make a conservative, Republican-leaning state if that was to happen, which is funny because it's Southern Oregon. But yeah, go figure. But what happens with that is that I tell my staff this all the time, follow the money. Where's the money coming from on this plan called, the Cal 3 movement? It's coming from liberal Democrats that are funding it. And you'll notice in Northern California, they shoved the Bay Area into Jefferson to combine it because they would have more votes and they could kill that conservative vote from ever happening. And that's part of the plan. You look to the coastal route, you're going to have LA and Santa Barbara, which have the majority of the blocks in what would be called California, because there's now a northern and a southern as well. And Southern California, there's a chance it could go conservative, but here's the problem.
It ain't a big chance, brother. It ain't a big chance.
But here's where this would bog down. Where's going to be the state capital? Is it going to be Riverside and Inland Empire? No, because people in San Diego are going to go, bull crud. We're the biggest port city. It's us. And I'm going to tell you right now, Orange County is going to argue, no, it belongs to Orange County. That could take a decade to figure out where the capital went, and where it went could have a strong decision on how liberal it went.
Wow.
Yeah, and so
I wish I had more of a response than that, but that's all I got. Wow.
And so my concern is we would actually be losing more voice rather than gaining it. The secondary area that people don't think about is, where does the penal code go? So if the penal code stays in Sacramento with all our present gun laws, that opens up LA and Santa Barbara to decide the fate of coastal California with a brand new set of laws, and wherever we put our capital to do the same thing down here. It means we have to create new agencies to handle some of this stuff. Not only is that money out of your pocket and my pocket for all this, but I'll give you a great example of how terrifying this is to me. When the Department of Fish and Game changed their name, one word, to Fish and Wildlife, that cost us as taxpayers millions of dollars to have decals, badges, patches, letterhead, everything changed. Now imagine you have to create new state highway patrols, new divisions in the court system, and there's where I want to hit it. If we do this as Californians, we screw over the Western United States in the Ninth Circuit, because we create an easier path to get more liberal judges on the Ninth Circuit that influence states like Utah, Nevada, Idaho, Montana, and Arizona.
Why? How?
Because remember the last time you and I talked about this with Hawaii and what they did, and this is the reason you want to fight, because you don't want to allow Hawaii to judge, sit over the rest of it. Remember, right now, you and I have a right to gripe and complain about anything with judges in California. But all of a sudden, Joel and Rick can't say anything about a justice from LA or from Santa Barbara. Or Ventura. We have no right to say anything about somebody from the Bay Area. Our voices were just killed. And that would lead to a path of where you end up with more liberal justices in the Ninth Circuit. Hard to believe, scary, but it means that's more pressure. Because right now, remember, we have 9 justices that have to be filled from this state. But that divided up, we would only have 2 coming out of Southern California, and the other 7 would come out of the other 2 new states.
So the reality of this whole thing is that although it's couched and promoted as a way to increase our voices and the power of our voices, what it really does is shrink us down to insignificance, in the sense that now we have 3 liberal states as opposed to 1.
Right.
We now have 6 liberal senators in the United States Senate instead of 2.
Right.
We have the majority of the liberal justices in the Ninth Circuit coming out of very, very, very liberal states, and the only part of California, Southern California, that might, maybe, if we're very fortunate, lean a little bit conservative is only going to have two.
Correct.
I mean, I looked at the billionaire behind this. This guy is a staunch liberal.
Right.
But they couch it as if it's a good thing for conservatives, and it obviously is not.
No, and that's why I keep looking at our community and saying, why would you even fall for this, even give it any thought, when you realize I would never go down and sit with Bloomberg and go, oh, you're trying to help me? No, I know he's against me. There's nothing he's ever going to say that's going to convince me otherwise. Nor with the person behind Cal 3, nor with the people with CalExit. They're all liberal, part of the liberal elitist goon squad that's trying to take our rights away. And I don't trust anything that comes out of them. They're frustrated because here's the fact, Joel. While it's painfully slow, we're taking back our territory inch by inch, foot by foot over the past 18 months. And we're going to continue to do that with Donald Trump in the White House, and some of the things that are happening. And now they are trying to find anything. Look to yesterday with Gavin Newsom. The moment the lieutenant governor heard that Kennedy got elected, he started going off the deep end on every which way he could find to try to salvage his fight for the governorship and to keep California liberal. We've got to keep our people in the fight. It's not over, but every day we have to keep pushing back for every inch.
It sounds to me like because of all the levels of government that have to agree to make this happen, this three-state thing. Isn't that also the case with the whole CalExit thing?
Yes.
Let's take California, make our own country. I mean, that's not even remotely going to happen just by virtue of the process, it seems to me. I mean, is the process roughly the same?
Yeah, well, the process also involves, and this is the one I always laugh at, where do all those military bases go? Do you actually think the rest of the country is going to say, sure, keep the planes, the submarines, the Navy?
No.
That's all going back.
Wow.
And then, so then we have a wealthy state with no protection, which means we become a province of some other government.
Now, California, it's funny you're talking about the way these politicians describe these things, and we're talking about how they twist it and shape it the way they want it to be shaped. I just read this morning, or was it yesterday, some blurb in the news that California is now considering passing some legislation to control or monitor fake news. Did you see that in the news?
No, I didn't see that, but it wouldn't surprise me.
The fake news thing is quite something, because everybody calls whatever they disagree with on the other side fake news. Now, I will applaud the president because he stole the term from the liberals and promptly smacked them about the face with it on a regular basis. But how is fake news helping us or hurting us here in California where the Second Amendment is concerned?
Well, fake news, it hurts us because it causes our people, I think, to develop an apathy and not see some of the most obvious things. So I'm going to give you a couple examples. Using the Cal 3 one, here would be the number one thing I would ask you. Joel, can you imagine a day when the legislature in Sacramento would give up their jobs?
No.
But if Cal 3 went through, 2/3 of the legislature would have effectively voted to end their job because they now be in different states.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
No.
So, but the other way too that this happens is, like, take today. We had a victory in Orange County. Now, whenever there's something negative going on with the firearms community, the news media is everywhere. They're publicizing it. They want to talk to everybody. They want to make myself and other leaders within the community look like the bad guys, that we don't care. And of course, all of us hate when anybody loses their life for any reason by a bad guy or bad woman or any other type of criminal behavior. But when something good like today happens, I can just share with your viewers, today was a successful day. We had the LA Times, Orange County Register, a couple other TV stations. The minute we won, it wasn't a news story. And they don't report it. And
would have been had you lost. Had you lost, it certainly would have been,
Yeah, had it went the other way, they would have reported it. But then what happens is our own people are like, well, all we ever see in the news is when you guys lose. Well, this is a great example. It's timely that I'm talking to you because today we had a win. The media isn't publicizing it because it's not news that they want to hear. It's not what the editors believe in. And so that's one of the things that we fight with the fake news. I don't even call it fake. I call it, what it is. It's anti-constitutional news reporting. They are not looking out for the Constitution. They're looking for ways to destroy it at every possible chance they can get.
All right, look, we got this issue going on here, which is it's a nationwide thing, and it's in California too, and that is unless you're 21, you can't buy a rifle or a shotgun. What's going on? What's going on with that?
So that comes from two different bills. One is Assembly Bill 3, which is by Assemblyman Bonta. The other one's SB 1100, which is by Senator Portofino. There's some differences, but both of them are designed to raise the age to 21. So Assembly Bill 3 I despise because I remember when the whole issue during the Vietnam conflict was, if an 18-year-old can be sacrificed on the battlefield, they should have the right to vote who their commander-in-chief is. And so it was a big push to lower the age of voting from 21 to 18. Now what's remarkable is those same Democrats that argued for that are now saying, yes, we can send you under Assembly Bill 3, we can send you overseas to die for your country, do everything. But when you come back to California, Joel, you are not allowed to have a firearm until you're 21. Yes, we trust you when you're outside the country to make sound judgments, to be smart, to do all those things, but not when you come back. Portofino in SB 1100 does have two exemptions. One are for active duty service people, which I'm going to touch on. The other one is for hunting. But here's the problem with that. In my book, active duty. So what about, a lot of people in the Army serve 2 years. Some of them go in at 17. They get out at, 19.
Right.
They've been to Afghanistan, Iraq, wherever we've sent them to serve, and now they come home and get told, yeah, no, we can't trust you. Wait a second. We trusted them to secure the peace, defend this country, to put their lives on the line with a blank check, payable with that very life. And then the insult from California is going to be, we don't trust you anymore? Because something magically happens when you go from being 20 years, 363 days to being 21. Now, I don't know what that magical thing is, because when I turned 21, other than realizing I could legally have a beer, didn't have to sneak around anymore, nothing magically happened. But according to the legislature, that's what they're saying. And I think this is just an insult. It's also an insult in a couple of other areas. Think about the ROTC programs on college campuses, where those people need to practice. That is the future of our national security. Evidently, California has went so socialist, it doesn't care about that. They don't care about the kids in JROTC programs. They use those programs to get out of the inner city and become part of our national security. They're impacted by it. And that list goes on and on and on. This is designed to kill the next generation of firearms owners. It's a clear shot across our bow, and it's got to be stopped at all costs.
Well, here's the other issue, too. If I'm a dad in another state, or even in this one for that matter, and I send my daughter to college, or my son for that matter, I send, but think about your daughter if you got one, or you send your daughter to college, and now she's got a studio apartment because she's not living in the dorms or whatever, and she's trying to go to college at UC Irvine or wherever, UCLA. And, it's not a terrible neighborhood she's in, but it's not, exactly La Jolla or Beverly Hills. And you'd like her to have a shotgun in the house so that if somebody tries to break into the house and harm her, she's not defenseless, but she's 18 or she's 19 or she's 20. Now you've taken this young gal or this young man, in the case of your son, but you've taken these young people and you've caused them to be completely and utterly defenseless. When at the same time, as you said, they could go down and sign up for the military, and they are then told that their responsibility is to go risk their lives, fight for their lives and for the country, and kill other people if necessary, and die if necessary for the very rights that when they come home, they cannot enjoy.
Correct. And this doesn't even include people that would be an at-risk population, such as those with special needs. Maybe they're confined to a wheelchair or some other device that make them a target, unfortunately, of the criminal element. They wouldn't have, because just a virtue of age, the right as an adult to defend themselves. The LGBTQ community is another example of people that could fear for their lives because of some of the attitudes of different people in our population.
Sure.
Until they hit 21, they don't have it. I mean, the list goes on, and it's amazing to me how we have it come together and said, what are you doing? This is a step backwards, not a step forwards. This is definitely taking away people's constitutional rights.
And with that in mind, where does the fight stand with this at this moment?
Right now, it's in appropriations, which is a fancy way of saying they're trying to figure out the budgetary things on it. So that's one of the places we try to block it. We won't know. I will keep you updated as it goes, but right now it's hard to tell which way it's going to go. We're making arguments along with several other very pro 2A groups. We're putting a lot of pressure on. We're meeting, the different assembly people and senators on those committees, but it's definitely in flux.
What would you say, given all the things that you're fighting at this moment? What is the top two things, for example, that gun owners can do to help?
Well, across the board right now, some things have changed. So with the change in the Supreme Court, obviously, we have to continue to fund all the legal challenges to Prop 63. And so every time we go to a higher level of the court, that's costly. But the biggest thing right now is the elections coming up to November. It is really looking at the swing elections. It's looking at the different things at the ground level. There's still a lot of runoffs and things like that we need people's voices and boots on the ground. We've got to get to the people in the middle. Like I said before, those people that own a firearm, but they don't go the normal places. And we got to get our people to literally come out of hiding and start saying, yeah, I'm a gun owner. And guess what? There hasn't been a shootout at the OK Corral on Rick Street.
Yeah, hasn't been on one on mine either, by the way, just so you know.
I have more than one firearm. And you know what? They behave themselves all day long. They never, load themselves, come out of the safe. Hundreds of people go down my street because I live near a school, obviously outside that school zone, but I live near one. I've got people that walk their dog and cat, and you know what? Not one of my firearms has ever threatened them. And I doubt none of them will. They're all very well behaved. I mean, these are the kind of things that we've got to get out to the public to make them understand that it's not us. We're our law-abiding people that actually would give our lives to defend our neighbors. It is the criminal element we should be going after, and it's the very element that Sacramento liberal elitist politicians are letting out of jail early. And we got to stop this. And it's not the first time, but I mean, you'll remember back at one time when we had a Massachusetts governor running for election, he drove around his tank and was trying to say we need to let go of criminals. And America finally said enough's enough. California needs to look at how many criminals we keep releasing to the streets. Here in Orange County, our own sheriff announced how many of these people were from other countries that were being released back in the streets of Orange County because of actions of Sacramento. She's taken a beating for it, but I salute Sheriff Hutchins because what she's trying to show people is this is your reality. I can't stop it. I'm being forced to do it, but these are repeat offenders. This isn't the oops, I had a bad night. This is oops, I had a bad night this long, on my rap sheet. It's
let me tell you something. I was a bail bondsman for a while. I don't know whether you knew that or not. Then I'm going to give you a little insight here that maybe you don't have. And maybe you do, I don't know. Okay. If you ever want to see what happens in the Superior Court at arraignment day, go down to the Orange County, you're in Orange County, so go down to the Orange County Superior Court and just sit in the back of the court. You can do that. And just sit there, make sure you had a good breakfast because you're going to be there a while. And what you will see happen is what happens in superior courts in every county in the state, as far as I know. And I've seen it happen here in San Diego. I've seen it happen in LA County and Orange County, where you sit there and people, this is a 3-strike state, I think, still, isn't it?
Right.
Aren't we still a 3-strike state? Yep. And so we all think that if you get 3 felony strikes, you go to jail and you never get out. Let me tell you something. You never get 3 strikes because if you show up in Superior Court on arraignment day and you've got 2 strikes currently, and this recent charge is a felony, I have seen people walk in with 2 strikes, a 3rd strike they're being arraigned for, and they'll walk out with the 3rd strike being pled down to a misdemeanor with probation, no jail time, or time served with whatever time they've been in jail, and the removal of a previous strike. So I've seen them come in with 2 strikes and a 3rd strike they're showing up for, walk out with 1 and probation.
Right.
So we do have the problem of them being released from custody, released from the jail, and released from the prisons. But we also have the problem on the other end of the court system finagling it and playing with it so they never have to incarcerate them in the first place. And people don't know that. Right. Unless they go down to the court and sit and watch it happen. Now, I've had to sit in court a number of times because I'm waiting to turn somebody over to the court system, back to the jail, who's on bond, who we feel is going to skip, and that person has an arraignment that day. I'm just waiting for him to show up so the bailiff can hook him up and take him, and I'm gonna get off the bond. And right. I've done that, and I've had to sit there all day because the person never showed up, or all day because a person's case was the last one, and be stunned to watch this happen over and over and over again on an entire day of arraignments, which are happening at breakneck speed. People walk in with 2 strikes, walk out with 1 in probation. Happens all day. Happens all day, every day in your local Superior Court. That's one of the problems we face here in the state.
And this is exactly why I think both of us have always been on the same page. People need to be able to have a concealed carry permit to protect themselves, because these people do not walk around with those signs, potential threat.
No.
But they're all around us. And it's because of our own government that says, hey, we're trying to protect you by taking Joel's and Rick's and our friends' rights to carry a firearm while leaving those people with the right to continue to break the law. They have already demonstrated they can't be trusted. We've done everything to show we can be trusted, which is why we have to keep this fight so we can protect ourselves and our families.
Well, the only reason why, I mean, look, I'm going to be honest here. The reason why honest, law-abiding people, other than the fact that they just tend to be that way anyway, the reason why honest, law-abiding people are honest, law-abiding people is because if they're not, they go to jail. Right. Because there's a consequence to not obeying the law. When criminals who have a natural proclivity to violating the law in the first place, then discover that by virtue of the court system and the system of incarceration, which just releases them, brings no consequence for their violating the law, then they just continue to do so. And when you take felons, in many cases who are violent felons, and teach them by virtue of the process that there is no consequence to their doing what they do, they will continue to do it. And guess what else they do? People don't realize this. They tell their friends who are also criminals in other states that they can have a free ride here and do what they want here and get away with it. And guess what we end up with? Where do you think criminals? We start importing criminals in the same way that we've been importing homeless. There are states in the United States who give homeless people one-way tickets to San Diego on the bus, one-way plane flights to San Diego on the bus, because because San Diego County and San Diego City will not deal with the homeless, and that's why we have the problem that we have. The same thing is happening with criminals. We are importing them into the state by virtue of the fact that we don't punish them, and there's no consequence for committing crimes here.
Correct.
Now you know why I carry a gun everywhere, every day, right? I mean, you know, come on. I wouldn't carry a gun if I could fit a cop in my pocket, but I can't.
No, I've tried. My son weighs too much.
There you go. Sorry, I went on a rant there. I apologize. Look, is there anything else that you feel like we need to talk about that we haven't touched on?
Not today, but I'm sure there will be in the future.
Probably tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
Rick, thank you so very much. I don't want to keep you any longer. I really appreciate you coming on and keeping us informed. It's extremely valuable. You have no idea how much I appreciate it.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate everything you do, Joel. Keep up the good work.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for watching. I know this went a little long. I hope you don't mind, but this information is important, and it's important that we don't just expect CRPA to do all the work. You and I have to work too. So please help out. If you don't want to, I urge you to join CRPA. I am a life member of CRPA, but I encourage you to join. If for some reason you don't want to join CRPA, then for crying out loud, join Gun Owners of California. Join the NRA. Join, you know what I mean? Let's get involved one way or the other and make sure that you vote, and let's start a little neighborhood watch, if we can, of things that we see so that we can contact these folks and let them know what's happening. They may not be aware of it, and that way we can help. Thank you again for watching. Have a great week, and please be safe.